There are few moments more quietly life-altering than choosing to release someone, not in anger, not as revenge, but with clarity. When you stop holding on, when you surrender not just the person, but the grip, the illusion, the dependency, you don't simply lose someone. You rediscover yourself. Letting go is not weakness. It is not escape. It is not failure. It's an act of profound Bavarian inner rite of passage. It signals a threshold in the evolution of the soul. Hey, if you pay close attention, you'll sense it. The shift begins the moment the choice is made. Your inner world, once scattered and disoriented, slowly begins to reconfigure. What was once fragmented starts to come together. When you reach the still, honest place where the decision is made, not in chaos, but in knowing a deep movement awakens inside. It's quiet, subtle, hidden in the shadows, where real transformation always begins. You might first feel it as exhaustion, a soul-level fatigue from striving to be seen, understood, loved, in a place that could never truly meet you. And so, in that quiet surrender, you whisper, not in bitterness, but in truth, enough. When the soul shifts, this moment, though it may look like the end of a connection, is really the beginning of something spiritual. Beneath the surface, a deeper energy stirs the seed of freedom, because in letting go, the truth you've been avoiding comes into focus. You were never in control. You could never force love or understanding or closeness. What you could do, what you did do was contort, shrink, stretch, and sacrifice. You did it in the name of love, in the hope that giving more would make you enough. But this hope, though sincere, extracts a quiet cost. It disconnects you from your truth. You wear the mask not out of deceit, but because it felt like the only way to stay close to what you longed for. You silenced your voice, diluted your truth, managed your intensity. Yet beneath it all, your spirit waited. It waited for the moment you'd no longer confuse attachment with love. It waited for your return. Letting go dismantles the illusion of control the ego clings to. We like to believe we can earn love, only we're more kind, more patient, more forgiving. We think tenderness can be drawn from indifference through effort. But love is not summoned by sacrifice. It reveals itself through presence. And presence cannot be forced. So letting go becomes the moment you stop performing, the moment the mask falls. What follows is not chaos, it's silence, stillness, a clarity that whispers, I was never meant to beg for what should be freely given. Spiritually, this is a kind of death knot of your essence, but of the false self. It's the one who worked tirelessly to be chosen, the one who tied their value to being needed, the one who waited endlessly for love to be returned. That death is painful, but it is sacred. Without it, the soul cannot rise. When the false falls away, the world might feel eerily still. You may ask yourself, who am I without this role? But this is not emptiness. This is holy ground, the space where your true self begins to take root. You are no longer bending to be loved, no longer dimming your light to avoid abandonment, no longer clinging to a love that required your disappearance. In letting go, what you gain is not just freedom, it is revelation. To outsiders, it may look like loss, but within, something eternal awakens. The illusion has ended. What's rising is real. You stop searching for yourself in someone else's reflection. You begin turning inward, where your truth waits unconditional and whole. From that center, everything changes. You might still grieve, you might still ache, but grief no longer chains you. It moves like weather passing, shifting. What remains is a new foundation, quiet trust, knowing you are no longer at the mercy of someone else's ability or inability to love you. And that, truly, is where liberation begins. Letting go isn't just about leaving someone. It's about confronting what you once used them to avoid. Often, when we stay attached to someone who can't fully meet us, it's not just love, it's distraction, a refuge from older pain. The relationship becomes a container where unresolved wounds hide beneath the surface. When that container breaks, everything it held rises to the surface. This flood is not a punishment. It is a calling. It is your shadow, the silenced, neglected parts of you finally asking to be seen. It's every wound you buried, every part of you that dimmed itself to be palatable. Now, with no one left to please, the soul brings it all forward. It can feel overwhelming, like regression, but it is not backward. It is inward. You are not falling apart. You are meeting yourself. These wounds don't return to destroy you. They come for reconciliation. You cannot heal what you refuse to face. You cannot claim your fullness while exiling what once broke you. When you release someone who didn't see your worth, your first instinct may be to ask, why didn't they? But beneath that is a more essential question. Why do I struggle to see it? This is why the shadow returns, to reveal where you have not yet welcomed yourself. Shame may surface, resentment, rage, especially if you spent years shrinking for the sake of peace. But now is not the time to run. Now is the time to listen. You may hear your soul say, I'm tired of pretending. I deserve to be held without earning it. I am worthy, even in anger, in sorrow, in fear. This is sacred work. It's not polished. It doesn't look like enlightenment, but it builds it. Every part of you that rises in the silence left behind is a part of you, seeking to come home. This is not about blaming them. It's about turning toward yourself with the presence you once bagged from them. As you tend to these parts, slowly, gently, again and again, the pain clarifies. It starts to make sense. You realize the grief was never just about them, was about all the ways you've abandoned yourself. And now, by letting go, by not chasing what could not nourish, you've cleared the space to remember. You remember your voice, your boundaries, that your emotions aren't too much. They are messengers. What rises after letting go is not only sadness, it is power, untamed, demanding to be lived. The shadow is not darkness, it's unlit truth, finally emerging. And as it rises, so too does something else, the breaking of projections. We don't just see others as they are. We see them through our wounds, our unmet needs, our hopes. We put them on pedestals, cast them as saviors or villains, embedding them into our inner narratives. Letting go shatters these illusions. The person you once thought held your happiness begins to shrink, not as punishment, but into reality. They are no longer a mirror for your unhealed self. They become simply human. This is awakening. It can feel destabilizing. For so long, your identity depended on how they saw you. Without that reflection, who are you? Yet in that void, something sacred emerges. Without the projections, there's space for truth, for presence. You begin to see yourself not as who you needed to be loved, but as you actually are, independent of their gaze. As these projections fall, so does the ego's grip. The need to be loved in a certain way dissolves. And you realize, love isn't about being perfectly seen by another. It's about seeing yourself clearly, gently, wholly. You realize that the love you've been searching for outside of you was always meant to rise from within. And as these illusions fade, so too do the burdens you carried. You forgive not just them, but yourself, for believing they could complete you, for needing them to be something they never could, for giving away pieces of yourself to be enough. And in this forgiveness, you are released. What remains is freedom. Freedom to be who you are without needing someone else to validate it. This is the freedom of spiritual sovereignty, the quiet miracle of remembering yourself When you let go, a stillness arrives. It may feel strange, but wait, neath the silence, something ancient stirs, something true. Okay, it's your soul returning home. What really happens when you let go of someone softly, almost imperceptibly? Life begins guiding you back to balance, to peace, to clarity. You no longer have to twist yourself to fit into someone else's world. You no longer need to suppress your truth just to be accepted. And the relief that comes with this is profound, like you've been holding your breath for years. And finally, you exhaled in this new stillness. The ache begins to fade. No more waiting, no more hoping for something from the other person. No more straining to please, to earn affection, or prove your worth. For the first time, you can breathe freely in your own skin. You begin to realize something quietly powerful. Your worth was never dependent on someone else's recognition. It was always within you, waiting. This is the awakening of the inner self, the part of you that doesn't need to be validated, doesn't need to be seen. It simply is whole, complete, and untouched by anyone else's inability to see your light. And when you finally stop looking outside of yourself for wholeness and begin to look inward, a veil lifts. You see yourself clearly, not as an extension of someone else's expectations, but as a being with your own desires, your own purpose, your own sacred worth. This self is not flawless. It is not perfect, but it is real. It holds both your light and your shadow and knows that you are worthy, not because of what you do, but simply because you are. With this realization comes calm, a stillness that replaces the old turbulence. Your peace no longer depends on another person's affection. The world may still spin, relationships may still rise and fall, but you remain centered. This is spiritual alignment. This is what happens when you let go. You no longer search for answers in someone else's love. You realize the love you craved was always meant to come from you. And with that, a deep, gentle peace begins to rise. You no longer feel the need to fix yourself. You stop trying to prove anything. You're allowed to simply be. And in that being, something even deeper awakens your connection to life itself. You start to feel the rhythm of the universe. You begin to understand that you are not separate, but part of a vast, living whole. And from that understanding blooms a profound trust in yourself, in your path, in the timing of everything. You no longer force, you no longer chase, you allow. This awakening isn't some dramatic transformation. It's a gentle, ongoing unfolding. God, return to your true nature, a quiet homecoming to the deepest parts of yourself. You begin to see that every struggle, every heartbreak, every hard-earned lesson was part of your evolution, not setbacks, not failures, but catalysts for growth. Letting go creates space for your truest self to emerge. And though you won't feel it every single day, the more you trust yourself, the more this deeper self will reveal itself. And when it does, you'll feel it, a sense of ease, a belonging that doesn't depend on someone else. It's a purpose that doesn't require outside permission. In the silence, after you let go, you may expect emptiness, but what you find instead is presence, the full, undivided presence of your own soul, ready to lead you toward the life that was always meant for you. When you let go of someone who does not value you, something powerful begins to stir. You reconnect with a quiet strength that was buried under the noise. For too long, you may have contorted yourself, softened your voice, bent your needs just to be loved. But now, you stop doing that. You reclaim your power, not with force, but with truth. Not with anger, but with clarity. You stop asking the world for permission to exist. You just exist. And in that, you become unshakable. This strength doesn't come from validation. It comes from knowing that no matter who overlooked or misunderstood you, your essence was never lost. You were never dependent on anyone to be whole. You simply forgot, but now you remember. And as you remember, your dignity returns, not as arrogance, not as defense, but as grounded, unwavering self-respect. You no longer beg for attention. You no longer shrink to fit. You rise. Letting go allows you to honor your needs again, to say no when you need to say yes to yourself, unapologetic ally, and in this space of self-honor, your true power begins to unfold, not rushed, not forced, but rising from within. You begin to live life on your terms. You make choices from your truth, not from fear. And suddenly, the world opens up. Not because it changed, but because you did. In releasing someone who couldn't see you, you began to see yourself. And in that seeing, you become whole again, not because someone else made you whole, but because you stopped believing you were broken. This is the gift of letting go. You stop waiting to be chosen and choose yourself. You stop looking for someone else to define your worth and define it yourself. You realize that you have always had the power to create a life of meaning, purpose, and love. And that realization is liberating, because now you don't need anyone to give you permission to be happy. You give that to yourself. You are free. You stop fighting the current. You stop forcing what's not meant. You begin to move with the flow of life, lined, trusting, present. Letting go isn't loss, it's remembrance. It's the return to who you were before you thought you had to earn love. So what really happens when you let go? You do not break. You are born. You do not become empty. You become whole. You do not lose yourself. You come home. And that is the true power of letting go.